What's going on, bro hams? Today's video, I'm kind of just bringing you guys along with me. I'm not doing anything exciting, so if you guys want to skip through, feel free. So about 2 days ago, one of my friends texted me, told me he bought a 980 Ti, like a used Zotac. I think it was like the Amp Extreme or something like that. And so he wanted to test it out, see if it worked, but he doesn't have a PC. And he offered to bring it over to my house so we could test it out. But my room's a mess, right? So I was like, nah, like, kind of lazy. I don't want to clean up, and I kind of feel embarrassed bringing people into my dirty ass room, you know? So I figured, I was like, you know what? I'll just take my PC to you, and it'll be great, right? So I take my PC over. I have it sitting in the front seat. I took the Z because I didn't have the Civic. On my way over there, I bought Chick-fil-A. And I bought a drink. Now, when I bought the drink, I didn't think much about it. You know, I was just driving. I wasn't driving fast or anything. I was just cruising over to his house, but some people cut me off and made me swerve, right? So when I swerved, the drink like spilled all over the place. Not sure if you guys can see it, but now the inside of my car, it's like all covered in soda and stuff. I gotta clean it. I spilled the soda on my computer. Now when we got over there, we put in his 980 Ti and it didn't work. So we pulled his out. I put in my Asus Strix overclock 980 Ti and it still didn't work. It didn't turn on, it wasn't doing anything. So I went over to Best Buy and I bought a EVGA 600 watt power supply, thinking maybe my power supply shorted out. So switched it out, and he had another, my friend had another power supply. You know, it still wasn't working or anything like that. So pretty much it didn't work. We brought it home and it worked at home. Not entirely sure what happened, I don't know, but it ended up working. So he came over yesterday, brought over his card. His card worked fine. I was able to overclock it to about 1504 megahertz, running the memory at 8,000, something like that. Yeah, so that thing was pretty cool. My Asus Strix is at 1505 stable. Usually I can kind of do 15, right? But it's not as stable. If I'm running something really heavy, like Battlefield 1 or something, it crashes. So I can't run it stable at that. I have to bring it down to 1505. But yes, today all I'm gonna be doing is taking the power supply back to Best Buy. I didn't need it. I'm gonna clean the Z because it's dirty as hell. And I figured I'd talk about some of the reasons why I like the Z. I made a video, I don't know, a few months back talking about the things that I disliked about the Z, and it seems to be my most popular video. So I figured I'd do another video talking about the things I do like about the Z. Now, like I said in that video, you know, I love my car. I don't dislike it. You know, there's a couple things I didn't like about it. But in this one, I'm gonna talk about the things that I do like about the car. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. For those of you that don't care about my vlog, I'll put a link down in the description that you guys can just click on, and it'll go straight to the part where I talk about, you know, why I like my car. So yeah, let's get going. Something that happens here all the time, for those of you that don't know where I live or you're new to the channel, I live in the Antelope Valley. It's pretty much just desert everywhere, right? So we constantly have fires. Not sure if you guys can see it, but yeah, there's another fire. So every summer, either the desert's on fire or the forest or something's on fire. We always have fires. So, and it's usually really hot here. So right now it's 100 degrees. So yeah, it's kind of hot. And it's only gonna get worse. Fun times. We're at Best Buy now. Parked far away from the entrance, that way no one comes and hits the car. I've had plenty of times where people come and park next to me and end up dinging the Z. So yeah, park far away. So let's go inside and see what they say. They took the power supply back. I'm looking at mounts for the GoPro. Whoops. Anyways, so I don't know if this one will fit into the 3. Not sure. They have another one for 30 bucks. But it's not like an underwater one, which I don't really care about because I just want it so I can mount the GoPro either on my helmet or somewhere on the FD. But I'm gonna ask around, see what someone here says. So yeah. So I just left Best Buy. They didn't have the Hero 3 mounts or whatever, so I'm gonna have to check Amazon. But yeah, so I'm just gonna go home now. Not gonna lie, I'm feeling pretty lazy now. So I don't know if I'm gonna talk or if I'm gonna clean the car today. I might just do it tomorrow. I don't know. It's kind of hot. Yeah. But I figured on the drive home I'd talk about, you know, why I like the Z so much. Let's get going home. I kind of want chili cheese fries too. Like, I'm really hungry. Probably gonna get some fries. The 350Z to me is a great car. I don't particularly think that it's the most amazing car, but for the price, you know, it's not bad. If you think about it, the Z for Nissan is their mid-level sports car. You know, the S chassis used to be their entry level, then it was the Z, and then the GTR was the top tier, you know. Now it's not that, but the 350Z to me is a great car. As I've said, I think I mentioned it in previous videos, but I used to daily mine every single day, and I drove about 130 miles a day, and I did that for the past 5 years. So every single day, you know, I had to get up and drive to work, right? I'd commute to work. Now, in that span, I put almost 100,000 miles. Well, I guess it's been more like 4 years. Anyways, I put almost 100,000 miles. And so far, the only thing that I've really had a problem with were one of my axles went bad. And that's not the car's fault. That's, you know, the car is too low. So that's owner's fault, right? Besides that, I had one coil pack go out on me, and that was literally about a year ago. So in the entire time that I've owned this car, you know, it's been really reliable. It's great on gas. If you don't drive like an idiot, it's great on gas. Now, I usually would get, I don't know, anywhere from low to mid 30s, right? On ramp. Alright, so as I was saying, I usually get about low to mid 30s if I'm not driving like a dumbass. The car is great on gas. You know, I baby it everywhere I go. I'm very easy on this car. I never do stuff like that I just did. Most of the time, I don't pass 65 just because I'm usually not in a hurry to get somewhere. You know, I'm a very slow person, so I get great gas mileage with the Z. Now, I know other people don't. I know there's a lot of people that struggle to get great gas mileage with this car. And honestly, it's usually just their driving. So, like I said, you know, I love that about the car. The most I was able to squeeze out of it was 40 miles a gallon. And I would actually check, you know, I'd like track my mileage, like write it down and stuff. It's not like I'm just guessing. And every single day for the past, I don't know, 4 years, filling up at the exact same gas station. I've been filling up at this Shell that's by my house, and it's not because I love Shell or anything. It's just because that specific gas station is low carb friendly. So because it's low carb friendly, I go to the exact same one every single time. Prices, it's not the cheapest, so I was like, whatever, you know, I can get in, I can get out, and I don't have to worry about getting stuck. So that's the reason why I've been filling up at the same place. Now, another thing is, before the Z, I had a bunch of S chassis, right? So originally, my first car was an S chassis. I've owned about 6 or 7 of them. So I know my way around the S chassis fairly well. The Z, this is the first time I've owned the Z. It's the first time I've worked on one. Any type of experience, you know, when I bought this car, it was my first time, right? So I bought this car sight unseen. One of my friends owned it, and he's one of those owners that is really careful, you know, like he really takes care of his stuff. And so I wasn't too worried about seeing the car and being like, oh, you know, this thing's not a good car or anything like that. So like I said, everything, when I bought this car, it worked perfectly fine. There was a couple things here and there that were wrong with it, but nothing that was a deal breaker, right? The car itself was great. But so far, the Z has been pretty easy to work on. There are a couple of things that I don't like, such as the coil packs. You know, some of them are a little hard to get to just because my hands are kind of big. So it's kind of hard sometimes. It's not like the 240 where the spark plugs, you know, you just take off the spark plug wire and the spark plug's right there. You know, it's not like that. You actually have to kind of get in and do a little bit more work. So another thing is, let's see, changing the oil on this thing is actually really easy. It's a lot easier than on the S chassis, so that's something I love, because the oil filter itself is really easy to get to, right? Now, it doesn't look like it, but it feels like it's more spacious than my old S13. My previous daily before this one was a S13 convertible, and my arms would be touching the door panel, right? So I'd be sitting down, and I had S14 seats in it, and literally I'd be touching the door panel. And this one, I have a little bit more space. It feels like I have maybe an inch or two, you know, so it feels more spacious. Being that the convertible, you know, I usually drove it with the top down, so headroom for me, if I sit up straight, I have maybe about an inch before my head hits the ceiling, right? Right now I'm not sitting up straight. I'm a little bit slanted. Now, one thing that I never actually talked about in my previous video, if you're too tall, you can't see out the rear view mirror. So I usually slant my head down, you know, I don't sit up straight, which is a problem, because I have, what do you call it, kyphosis, I think is what it's called. But anyways, so that's one thing, but this car feels great, and I'm about, I don't know, 5'11" or so. Yeah. Let me fix you guys. But yeah, so I'm about 5'11". I weigh 240 pounds. I'm not a small guy by any means. You know, I have a good amount of muscle and fat, you know, but I fit in this car perfectly fine. Now, I wouldn't recommend it for someone that's bigger than me, because I have had friends that are a little obese, you know, sit in the car and they struggle. But if you're smaller than me, it's a great car. You know, I'm using the stock seats too, so they don't hold you all that well, but it's fine, right? The Z isn't really fast. It's not a fast car by any means. It's fast enough. You know, it gets me from point A to point B. For being my daily driver, I am more than happy with the power. Like, I don't need more power. It's a fun car. talking about how they need, I need like an extra 100, 200 horsepower. That's a lie. If you're just daily driving this car, it's perfectly fine the way it is. Now, if you're trying to race, then yeah, it's not as fast, but it has a decent amount of power, like I said. Now, I believe mine is making about 240 wheel. So, I mean, it's not groundbreaking or anything like that, but it gets the job done, like I said. I've taken this car to drift events before. I've taken it to 2 drift events. Drive it through the canyons all the time, right? I don't do any drag racing. As far as straight line speed goes, it's not that fast, right? But it's perfectly capable of getting you from point A to point B. If you're drifting, the car is perfectly fine. The only thing I'd say is like change out the seat. The stock seat sucks. Like I slide around all over the place. I'd say fix the e-brake if possible. Most likely get like some Project Mute shoes and you'll be fine. And what else? Change the diff. If you have a base model 350Z, then you're most likely have an open diff. I have a touring model, so mine came with an LSD, but my viscous feels like it's not locking anymore, so it's pretty much almost an open anyways, right? Makes the car a little hard to predict when you're drifting, but like I said, it's not too many things. As far as power goes, it's perfectly fine. One of the nice things about this car when you're drifting is that it has a lot of low end torque. And now, being that I've never drifted a car with a V8, you know, I used to have a V8 in my old Silverado. I had a 454, and this kind of feels more like that versus like an SR that doesn't have as much torque. My 13B, I can't really comment on it because it's modified way different than this thing and outputs about double the horsepower, right? And it makes about double the torque as well. So I can't really compare it to that, but compared to like the KA, this feels way better low end than the KA. I have a Zenki Model Z, so mine is the DE engine, which redlines at around 6,500 RPM, right? So it's not a massive power band, but from like 3 and up, you know, you're perfectly fine. Now, like I was saying, I used to do a lot of canyon driving with this car, and it's really fun. It could be better just because mine specifically is lower. You know, it's to that point where it's not functional anymore. So if I want to do any type of spirited driving, and I'm with a group of like people that have proper built cars, it's not going to end well for me, right? But if I'm out just cruising about, this car is perfectly fine. If I were to raise it and get some better bushings, my bushings are going bad already, but if I were to get some better bushings, like this car would be perfect for canyon driving. It has enough power, like I said. Oh, there's another Z brother. Hey, it's a nice Z. Anyways, like I was saying, so if I swap out the bushings and all that stuff, damn, this car is fucked up. So there's like a Scion XP next to me, and it's like all rusted out. This car is ugly. So, like I was saying, if you're gonna be driving like through the canyons and stuff, this car is perfectly fine. It's a lot of fun. You know, one of the things that I tell people that ask me about this car is you don't need more power if you're just learning how to drive. This car is fine, right? Car has enough power to get you around. For when I'm usually driving through really technical canyons, I don't use the entire power band, so I'm not flooring it all the time either. But it does feel nice. Like I said, it has low end power, and it's really nice. What else? What else? Now, another thing that I really like is that you can put a supercharger on the car and it'll kind of keep the same characteristics of it being NA as far as like the power band goes. You know, there's not a bunch of lag and stuff. And at the same time, be street legal. Vortec and Stillin both offer street legal supercharger kits for the Z, which is great. At the moment, as far as I'm aware, I don't think anyone offers a turbocharger kit that's street legal, that's like carb legal and all that. You know, in the area that I live, people usually do get pulled over all the time for having a modified car. So that's something that, you know, for me is a plus. Like if I do ever want to put more power, I can, right? So that's one of the nice things that I like about this car. And there's a huge aftermarket support for this car. Like you can go to a lot of different companies that sell parts for, you know, any type of Japanese car, and they'll most likely have parts for the 350Z. I usually get a lot of my parts from like Enjuku Racing or sometimes I'll go through locals like Animal Auto if I need stuff, right? But they have a plethora of parts made for this car. You know, anything from like cheap coilovers to very nice expensive coilovers. You can usually find them. I would eventually like to get some Öhlins coilovers for my car. I was thinking either Öhlins or like JRZ or something. Eventually I want to do more like grip racing with my car. I'd like to do time attack if possible. But I don't want to build it into a track car. Like I enjoy driving this car on the street. So it'll just be like a fun car that I can drive to the track, right? But yeah, for those people that don't have a bunch of money, this car is still great. You know, I have friends that are in college that have a 350Z and they can't afford, you know, $3,000–$4,000 coilovers, but they want to lower their car. Well, they can get like BCs or I don't know, you know, Powered by Max makes coilovers for this thing. Like I said, BC Stance, they make coilovers for this car. TN makes coilovers. You know, you can definitely buy cheap coilovers for like $1,000. Granted, I don't recommend it because they usually don't handle very well. They don't feel really nice, but whatever, you know. So yeah, I personally have Zenkokus on mine. They're not like name brand coilovers. If I remember correctly, it was like a small shop here in California that made these coilovers, and then I think they went out of business. So yeah. Yeah, so I'm gonna go order some food and we'll be right back. Alright, so I just got my food, ended up getting some chili cheese fries, very fattening, but I love them, right? So, funny thing is I come here so much and I always order the chili cheese fries, like Primo Burgers, love this place. So, anyways, I'm gonna drive home now and I'll continue talking to you guys about, you know, why I like the car. So I didn't really script any of this, so that's kind of why I don't really know, you know, some of the things I should talk about. But if you guys have any questions about the car or you need advice or whatever, feel free to comment below, you know. I enjoy it when you guys comment. I can't see shit outside. Anyways, I don't remember where I left off. So I think I was talking about coilovers. But yeah, so this car is like, you know, it handles really well. It's not the best handling car I've ever been in, but by far it's one of the most fun cars I've ever driven. And I'm talking about like stock cars, right? You know, you can always modify a car to be different and whatnot, but I'm talking about like just the stock car. This car is really fun to drive. And so I've had this car about, yeah, like 4 years. I bought it, I was 20 at the time, or 21. I'm 25 now. Yeah, something like that. Bought this car not too long after I graduated from college. So I'll be honest, there are a couple things that, coming from an S chassis to this, like repairs for this car are not as cheap, right? There's a couple things here and there where I was expecting stuff to be cheaper. Some parts are more expensive, like brakes are a little bit more expensive, right? And the touring model doesn't come with the Brembo, so I have like the crappy brakes, right? But I want to get the Brembos later. I was hoping I could either get those or like the Akibonos, just to kind of, when I start doing track days, I know those aren't as great either, but it helps, you know. I figured eventually if I get serious into tracking the car, I might change my mind later. I want to get either like some Stop Techs or maybe like Willwood or Project Mu brakes, you know, get something a little better, right? But that's another nice thing. You can find a bunch of used stuff for this car, like the used Akibonos or Brembo brakes. They're usually like $1,000. It's not too bad. I've seen a lot of people sell engines like a complete swap for a Z for under $1,000, which just boggles my mind. Not all the time, but you know, once in a while you'll see it like a good deal like that, which I think is pretty cool, you know. Now, one thing that I guess I kind of don't like is a lot of like the aero support for this car. I don't like a whole lot of them. Usually I prefer cars that have look more stock, I guess. I don't know. Like there's very few cars that I like that have a body kit on them. We're home. So I'm gonna wrap up the video in a little bit, but like I was saying, you know, the car is great. I love it. There's great aftermarket support for this car. They're cheap to find now. You can definitely find some for under $5,000 now. I knew a guy that sold his for $4,000. He was the original owner, no accidents, no nothing to it, and you know, the car was perfect. And I was actually gonna try to buy it, but he ended up finding a buyer before I could get the money. Anyways, you can definitely find some of these for cheap. You can find modified ones that aren't super expensive. I paid almost $13 for mine, but you know, I have a bunch of parts for it already. It already came with some SPL arms. It already had the Wet Sports TC 105Ns, and those aren't cheap wheels either, right? So it already had a good amount of stuff to it, and I little by little been trying to keep upgrading the car. So yeah, I like my car. You know, hopefully, like I said, in the future I'd like to drive this to the track. I definitely want to keep it streetable, so I'm not going to put a cage in this thing. I do want to try to see if I can get maybe a bucket seat, but I'm not entirely sure yet. I'd like to sit maybe just a little bit lower because this seat sucks, but I'm not sure if I'm going to go full fixed bucket like a Brid, maybe some Zeta 2s like I have in the FD. I was also thinking about seeing if I can find like some garage thrash seats. I think those are so cool. Definitely want some of those for my S13. But yeah, like I said, the car is great. I really like it. Great gas mileage. It's been very reliable. It has almost 200,000 miles, and as far as I'm aware, it hasn't had any engine troubles in the past. One of the previous owners, the one that originally started modifying this car, he had blown a couple axles, but like I said, the car is low and he was drifting, so it's expected, right? I did the exact same thing. But yeah, like, I just want to swap out the transmission, get a CB009, and keep driving this thing. Like, it's really great. So yeah, anyways, that's where I'm gonna wrap up this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to answer them. Anyways, if you guys could smash that like button, I'd really appreciate it. You know, you don't have to, but if you want to, it'd be great. If you guys want to subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate it. Like I said, drop a comment. I'm always down to have a conversation. Tell me if you guys like the 350Z or maybe you guys don't. Let me know why, right? But yeah, so thanks again for watching the video. I'll catch you guys on the next one.